welcome to the House of ZK Radio, which is a focused podcast and media channel exploring everything ZK, zero knowledge. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Annie, for the introduction, and really excited to be here today. I'm Alice. I'm from House of ZK and then also ZKM. I'm joined here today with Ming, who is the Chief Research Scientist and co-founder of ZKM, and I'll just be moderating this discussion about the vision of ZKM and then also Ming's vision for DAC Economy, which is his overall view of the space. So very excited to have this discussion today. I'm wondering, Ming, if we can first start off with, since you're the co-founder, if you can speak a bit about the origin story of ZKM. So why did Metis choose to have a zkVM spinoff?
Right. It's very natural because optimistic rollup, that's what Metis is built upon, needs a solution for the instant finality kind of shortcoming that people are seeing. So it goes like this. So optimistic rollup has instant confirmation. So it's pretty fast, but then you need 7 days to finalize the transaction. And that's seen by many as a shortcoming because people want to restore their fund and have it finalized instantly. So a solution would be to add a ZK rollup component to Optimistic rollup. So yeah, so this is a joint program initially between Metis and OP. And the reason for MIPS is that the OP stack is also built upon arguing on the MIPS architecture. So it's very natural for us to go about zkMIPS, and that's the name for ZKM. That's the origin story, yeah.
Nice, and then you also, I just want to dive a bit more into the why MIPS component, because we're seeing a really big trend with a lot of zkVMs, especially using the RISC-V architecture, but ZKM is using MIPS, and you mentioned that one of the reasons is because the OP stack also utilizes MIPS. I'm wondering if you can also talk about any other advantages that MIPS may have over other ISAs, and why specifically we chose to use MIPS for our zkVM.
Yeah, actually, you know what? MIPS actually is the true and best RISC zero because it's the first RISC architecture that was pioneered by John Hennessy, the late Stanford president. They have a famous textbook on computer architecture. And John actually started a company called MIPS, which is the first RISC architecture CPU. It's been around for a couple decades. It's simple, it's very stable. And right now, the zkMIPS, zkVM solution, ZKM is built. We're reached the third beta. It's pretty mature. And we're actually naturally just faster, 30-40% faster than our nearest competitors. And the reason is because MIPS is just 30-40% simpler. So that's the reason, one of the reasons. And the I think the most pertinent reason for choosing MIPS over RISC-V is that RISC-V, well, by the way, RISC-V started by David Patterson, the dual in that textbook. And RISC-V is new, but it's also very fragmented. Because the core is only 47 opcodes. It's Turing complete, but no one builds a real CPU with only the core. So all the vendors add their own architectural focus, preference, their own opcodes. So it's not compatible on an opcode level. Meaning that if an app developer is not a problem, because the tool chain will abstract that away. But for ZK proofs, we're actually proving the execution trace of a virtual machine or CPU. And that matters because if you have one opcode difference, that's another proof you have to seek. It's not the same proof. So for that matter, it doesn't really make sense to have a RISC-V, because your RISC-V VM will not possibly match most of the vendor RISC-V CPUs out there. And because we're doing a proof of a CPU, not building a real CPU, so the benefit doesn't really seem to be there. And right now there are other very ZK optimized virtual machines designs out there, for example, from LIDA. And so the reason for choosing a architecture like RISC-V or MIPS is because you can probably do a proof for a real world CPU application. For example, a lot of the sensors, routers, as critical infrastructure CPUs are built with MIPS. So there's a reason that we want to probably generate a proof. And RISC-V is targeting consumer CPU. So most likely there's no point to do like ZK or Things Wisdom. So the point is just the moot. So there are a lot of reasons I can go on here, but that's the majority of the reason that if you choose a real world CPU, MIPS is stable, simple, matching all of the legacy and critical infrastructure CPUs that's been around for 30 years. And you can probably just take an executable from maybe 20 years ago, generate a proof, and we can prove it online. That cannot be said for RISC-V. So MIPS is actually the best RISC for ZK VM.
Yeah, thank you, Ming. And it's very fascinating to see all of the decisions that come into choosing the specific ISA. So from it being with a streamlined set of opcodes to it being simple, and then also the fact that MIPS has been around for quite a long time. So very established architecture. So very interesting to hear about all of that. I wanted to talk a bit about more on the applications that ZKM is currently working on with the zkVM. So you mentioned in the beginning with the origin story that you saw a need to combine both ZK and optimistic. So for ZKM, you're specifically working on the idea of hybrid rollups, so combining both ZK and optimistic. Just wondering about if you could talk about the benefits for combining the best of both worlds and what new capabilities or opportunities will be led compared to just using ZK alone or just using the optimistic approach alone.
Right. So at the beginning, when the idea of rollup kind of first surfaced, there are two paths to the final ultimate like scalability solution for Ethereum. One is the optimistic rollup. Another one is called the ZK rollup, but ZK here, like stands for zero knowledge, is actually a little bit of a misnomer because on blockchain everything is already transparent. So it should be called like succinct rollup, or like ability rollup. So, but ZK rollup is very hard. I think many of the projects are still kind of code, from Vitalik, it's still on the training wheel. So naturally, optimistic rollup had already acquired like 90% plus market share, and all the dApps built on optimistic rollup will need to change their API, their interface to move over to ZK rollup. Because fundamentally ZK rollup and optimistic are not compatible, and it's not even like possible to just wrap around because they have totally different philosophy and view of the finality and everything, right? For example, optimism rollup, we had this thing called instant confirmation because the transaction is already put on L1, right? So the finality comes later. It's an afterthought. If there's a problem, then there's a compensation. But you can see confirmation as another kind of finality that's already there. And it's actually, for this matter, is actually pretty fast and cheap. And ZK rollup cannot say for the same. They have an instant finality, but that's a totally different concept. So it's hard to convince all the apps already built over the years to move over. So from market share point of view, ZK Rollup is kind of lost already. Well, that's my personal opinion. So for us, we would like to provide a solution for the best of two worlds, right? So you will still have an OP kind of shell. Then all the DApps developed for OP will need to change. They will take the benefit of a ZK rollup or validity rollup component that will deal with withdrawal. So you will have the peace of mind of what ZK rollup can provide, and you have the instant confirmation and all that goodies for most of your transactions that does not involve withdrawal. So literally best of both worlds. And also hybrid rollup also kind of improves optimistic rollup as well, because the time used to secure the transaction is just time, right? 7 days. But 7 days sometimes is not enough. In the American banking system, it takes like 12 days for a check to clear. So 7 days is a compromise. But with hybrid rollup, you can actually go higher, right? Someone might be want to transfer like $1 million or more. They probably want to wait even more time, maybe 30 days. And hybrid rollup can provide the flexibility of longer or shorter clearing time, and also provide instant withdrawal like DAC rollup. So literally the best of two worlds.
Yeah, and thank you for also mentioning about having the choice to select different challenge periods for that window. So you mentioned that for a lot bigger transactions, people may want to wait even longer for it to clear, whereas if you're sending just maybe a very small amount, a week may seem long, but we could make it or reduce it to just a couple of days. So providing users with that choice between a short and a long period, I think is
right. That's the
very
idea
important to emphasize. Yeah.
Hybrid rollup.
Yeah, thank you, Ming. And while we're on that topic of rollups, ZKM is also working on entangled rollups. So wondering if you can talk a bit about how the idea of cross-chain interoperability can be enforced without having to implement a bridge or without having to introduce any new trust assumptions.
Right. So so originally rollup was developed to solve the scalability problem of Ethereum, but with the most recent Ethereum upgrade, I think that problem is mostly solved. So we need to look at another use cases for rollups. Rollups are actually a pretty strong mechanisms to go beyond scalability. So I think a big area that kind of overlooked is interoperability, right? So traditionally, rollup was thought as a kind of like a vertical bridge, right? It will just be within one layer one ecosystem. You don't do cross-chains, which is kind of like a horizontal bridging. But we here at ZKM, we looked hard and deep into the mechanism rollup. We found out that you can actually use rollups to do cross-chain quote-unquote bridging as well. But in order to do that, we actually don't want any bridges between different layer one blockchains. So there's a kind of hard question involved is that if you rely on bridge, you have to add security assumptions, because a bridge does not have the security guarantee of either the source or the destination blockchain. So they have to have their own security, separate security mechanism devised, which has nothing to do with source or the destination, which makes it very brittle. So we decided to completely ditch any bridges. So we will call our solution a bridgeless bridge. And we also found out that if you want to do bridging without bridge, you have to ditch the most important characteristic of a bridge, which is ferreting information over. So for bridges for bridges not actually exist in the first place, you have to ditch that too. So you don't have any information ferreted over from the source and destination. So what gives, right? If you don't have information over, how can you do a kind of beat your purpose, right? Which is to make a connection between two blockchains. So the solution is to use an idea we kind of borrow from quantum physics called quantum entanglement. Well, it actually doesn't have anything to do with the real quantum physics, but we borrow the idea because it works very similar, is that the universe exists, before the actually transferring of the information. You don't need to actually get that information over because the universe exists for that already. Yeah, this sounds a little bit magical and difficult to understand. So let me say that this is something we call precondition. So when you fulfill the precondition, you actually don't need to transfer the hard information over. So with that, we implement something we call Entangled Rollup, which is a bridgeless bridge. And you can have the same security assumption of either blockchains. And so it's very secure. You can actually do interoperability for native assets, which can never be done with any bridges that we implement today. So let me just stop here. And this is the exciting technology we're developing on top of our zkMIPS, zkVM. We can do this because we also implement the universal L2. You don't need to differentiate between different L2s because in our eyes, all the proofs are zkMIPS proofs. On top of it, you can have EVM, MoveVM, or even C++ from a real-world application. For us, it's all the same. It's the same proof that being used to secure everything. That's why it's a universal L2. That's why we can build Entangled Rollup on top of it. And we call this a bridgeless bridge.
Yeah, thank you, Ming. And it's pretty incredible to think that you can use the underlying L2 to enable for that cross-chain messaging, for that native cross-chain asset transfers without having to introduce any kind of new security assumptions. So
right.
It's pretty incredible to think about that, yeah. And just wondering about our stage right now with developing Entangled Rollups. So recently we had a spin-off project called Goat Network that is a Bitcoin layer 2 and is the first step for achieving this. I'm wondering if you can speak about what comes next for Entangled Rollup, what stage we're in, and then also the long-term vision for building out this network.
Right. So Entangled Rollup can connect any blockchain, any L1 blockchain. So we decided to start with Bitcoin because Bitcoin is very hard. We all know that Bitcoin script engine is not very capable. So it's kind of hard to develop a verifier like other more capable blockchains. So we developed Goat to utilize sustainable yield for very exciting BTC L2 applications, not just for Bitcoin, but across all blockchains. So this is something like differentiate Goat from other BTC L2 projects. Next step, we're looking to develop other ecosystem, for example, the Move ecosystem, like Sui, Aptos, and the possibility is limitless. So we want to build a universal settlement network based on top of Entangled Rollup and connects all the blockchain that can support ZK Rollup.
Yeah, thank you. And very exciting time indeed for all of these new applications coming up. But while we were on that conversation of rollups, I'm wondering, are there any sort of applications that ZKM is considering to build in the future beyond hybrid rollups, beyond the Entangled Rollup network?
Right. The Entangled Rollup, it's not just for financial transactions. It's a universal messaging protocol, and upon this, not just the financial apps, traditional financial apps for blockchains, you can actually do applications that beyond financial transactions. I'm looking into like GameFi, SocialFi, and we can probably redo that and beyond. And the power of this technology is limitless. We'll see applications that never been possible before. So let me just paint this vision for you, and I will not hinder the imagination by just limit them to the things like we have today.
And I also wanted to transition a bit into DAC Economy. So just to give some context, Ming wrote a light paper a couple years ago just shaping the vision for how he sees the Web3 space today. And that vision is DAC Economy. I'm wondering, Ming, if you can speak about what drove the vision behind it and how it differs from our traditional economies and how we perceive value today.
Right. This may sound like a little bit unorthodox, is that when we see the space of decentralization, we equal them into blockchain and crypto. Crypto is another kind of, let's say, money currency, and with that we have what we call like decentralized banking. So we could provide banking to people who doesn't really have like banking services before. So this is a very hefty goal, but just to remember, this is still not the ultimate decentralization, because decentralization is not just one dimension. So the dimension of money, for every aspect of human life, you can sort of do decentralization as well. For example, decentralize the whole value system. Value is not just one-dimensional. I see value as multidimensional. Let me give you some example. We, of course, know that crypto is for providing access and service to the unbanked, because there are like 2 billion or even more people that don't even have a bank account. Without bank account, you cannot easily join the global economy as we have today, and then your income is very limited. And basic approach to solve poverty, for example, need people to have access to financial services. Otherwise, you couldn't get connected to the whole global economy. Then obviously that's very difficult to lift poverty for many people of the world. But that is only one aspect of poverty. There are a lot of value creation process that people can't access or can turn that into income, right? Because for today, income is the only way for you to get subsistence support for your living, right? For your life. So, for example, domestic service. Traditionally, women provide domestic support, raising children, and do a lot of house chores. And these are not content in our normal economy. They're not paid. These are obviously valued, but they're actually not valued, right? So these I call, aside from unbanked, I call this unpaid. There's a lot of work unpaid for people who are providing those valuable economic activities. So that's something we also want to decentralize and to provide value for. That's the most important thing. And there are more. Also, for a lot of work that humans do, for example, creative work, right? Artists, right? A lot of artists, they create arts every day, but maybe only a very small slice of those are actually turned into income. Most artists they're just bankrupt, right? They're broke. So a lot of value. What's the difference between some painting, some digital art, right? Some graffiti that could sell like millions of dollars, to someone on the street, right? Just had the inspiration to paint something I think many people will think also as valuable, but they're just there, not getting paid, not getting turned into income. So I call those unvalued. So now we're only tackling unbanked. What about the unpaid, unvalued work, human creations? Yeah, they should have value too, right? And we actually think they have value. It's just they're not participating in the global economy. They're not turning into any income. So DAC Economy is about using the technology we developed for crypto and blockchain and turn them into technologies that can actually turn the unpaid, unvalued into income that can participate in the global economy and provide subsistence for every human being's creation, their sweat, and their aspiration. Imagine you can turn your aspiration into income, and that is the way to fulfill the ultimate goal of decentralization. And we aspired from the beginning of human history to get every life their value worth.
Yeah, thank you, Ming. And really important that you emphasize that a lot of our times in our traditional economy, we only capture a fraction of the value that's actually generated. You mentioned that a lot of value that comes from creative work, from housework even, gets lost and it's not accounted for. But hopefully when we have decentralized economies and when we reach the vision for DAC economy specifically, we can capture value in all regards. So it's a very, very exciting future ahead of us. But just as a closing question before we wrap up, I'm wondering if you have any last thoughts or any advice you want to give to the audience?
Right. Let me actually closing that with the vision I just mentioned. I think one way that we all know is the challenges of AI. Right. It looks like in our current economic scheme or regime, AI will just take work away from people, and everyone will become unhired. Will become lost their jobs, even ourselves, right? Because AI can just do anything like human can. And the reason for that is actually rooted in the economic regime that I talked about, right? Because it can only turn a little bit of value, one dimension of value, into income that can sustain people's life. And if you think from a different point of view, if all these values are to be fulfilled, we can actually turn every kind of human activity into income. And then we don't need to worry about AI taking away our job, because in that new vision or world, AI can be equal partner with human. So this is something I'm experimenting to build. It's a new project I'm doing right now called Labs AI. Yeah, we try to build a system with human AI as co-partners, create value, multi-dimensional value, and that's to fulfill the vision I was very excited to talk to all of you, the unpaid and the unvalued, and turn AI into our partner instead of our greatest rival, which is the past. Like if we rely on the Web 2 world, the corporation will probably monopolize all the computing power to for AI world overlord, right? That's the one way that human can end up with. Another way is I try to build with Labs AI, which is a coexistence with AI and humanity. Yeah.
Yeah, and hopefully in the future we can find a co-partnership between us as opposed to one trying to compete over the other. But very exciting times ahead, and thank you again, Ming, for telling us about your insights behind ZKM and then also the overarching insight behind the whole space with DAC Economy. So some really great insights, and thank you all for joining as well.
Thank you, Alice.
Thank you.
Thank you all.